Hello students, welcome to Answer Writing program. Today we are going to discuss 3 questions taken from GS1 Geography section. So let's have an overview of our question. The first question is related to why India is considered as a subcontinent. The second question is related to the El Nino Southern Oscillation. The third question is related with the urban heat island. Let's start with the first question. So the first question is saying why India is considered as a subcontinent and what are the implications of the large latitudinal and longitudinal extent of India. Let's try to understand the demand of the question. Here in the first part of the question, we have to deal it with what are the features making India as a subcontinent. So this is the first demand of the question. We have to put out the factors which is making India as a subcontinent. And the second question is dealing with the implication of having large area, large latitudinal and longitudinal extent for India. So these are the two demands of the question we have to deal with. Here, how to approach this question? Here in introduction, we can define or explain the term subcontinent. And then in the body, we are going to deal with the two demand of the question. What are the factors makes India subcontinent and what are the implications of it? So what is the subcontinent? The subcontinent is a large and distinct landmass that is a part of larger continent but geographically separated from the main continent by landmass and having distinct geographical features such as mountains, seas or other natural boundaries. For example, if we consider India is a part of Asia only, but it is having a different kind of geographical feature. In north, we can see the Himalaya. In southern India, we have the presence of the seas from 3 sides. So these are the having diversity with respect to India, and also we can see the unique cultural and geological and environmental factors are also present here. So if we consider India as a subcontinent, we have the other countries also in this region. For example, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Sri Lanka and Maldives. So these particular countries make it as a subcontinent. So this is the introduction. Now come to the body. Here in the body, we are going to define what are the features which make India as a subcontinent. So the first one is geographical separation. So if we consider India, according to the plate tectonic, it is a separate plate which is colliding with the Eurasian plate, and thus the formation of Himalayas happened. So we can consider it physically separated from rest of the Asian continent by natural barriers such as massive Himalayan mountains in the north, which acts as a natural boundary for it, thus providing a different kind of biodiversity and the presence of different kind of flora and fauna. So if we see the southern India, it is surrounded by the Indian Ocean. The isolation has contributed to the development of distinct landmarks, as we have discussed, different biodiversity, different flora, fauna, and also different kind of features which we can see in the form of the different landmarks like Eastern Ghat, Western Ghat, Deccan Plateau, etc. The other important point is size and physiological diversity. So India is one of the largest country in the world by area, and as we already have discussed, it is having a long land frontier which is more than 15,000 kilometers and a coastline more than 7,500 kilometers. So you can see a physiological diversity, and we can see a large coastline and large desert, high mountain ridge and large plain like Indo-Ganga Brahmaputra plain. So we can see a vast kind of physiological features in India. We are having the mountains range also, we are having the dense forest also, we are having the plains also, which is making and providing it is a physiological diversity. And because of this, we are having a variety of climates, ecosystem and biodiversity, which already we have discussed. The third important point is cultural and linguistic diversity. So if we see India, we are having Indian surrounding, we are having the cultural diversity. There are different kind of languages present, the different kind of tradition we can find out, and because of that we have developed a different kind of regional culture and languages, which is making it as a salad bowl, which is having a different kind of composite cultures we can see in India. Thus it is having a characteristics of a subcontinent. The other important point we can discuss here is related to the historical significance. So if we consider India and surrounding, it is considered as a birthplace of major religions, and along with it the economical and political importance it is having as a global player, because we have a diversity, we have a physiological variation with respect to the features of the landmass. Thus we are having a huge economic resources also. Thus we are exporting a large number of material to the world, and that is why we are having a global presence across the globe. And that is why this particular region and the country having an immense influence and impact on the world stage, not today only, but from the historical, if we consider the historical past, from the past only we are contributing in that direction. So these are the few features which is making it as a subcontinent. Now let us discuss the implication of large latitudinal and longitudinal extent. So as we have already discussed, we have a large area. Thus we are having a climatic diversity, because if we consider the area south of the Tropic of Cancer, it is having a tropical climate, while if we consider the north of the Tropic of Cancer, it is having a subtropic climate. So because of this, we have a vast variation or vast kind of climatic diversity present here. Also the length of the day and night, so as we go to the region near to the equator, we experience more consistent day and night. But if we going far away from the equator, we witness more pronounced changes in the seasons, and various aspect of the day and life also gets affected. So there is a variation into the length and day of night of the country also. And the next important point is time zone. So if we consider the eastern area of the India, eastern part of the India, they receive sunlight earlier as compared to the western part of India, but India is having a single time zone which is promoting the unity and coordination among the country. But the eastern and western areas, because of the time differences, have some natural body clock related issue for the people relying there. So that's an issue also, but because of the coordination of different kind of transportation etc., we have kept single time zone across the country. The other important point is biodiversity. So as we know, we have a different kind of physiological features present in the India. We are having different kind of flora and fauna. So unique ecosystem, habitat and species contribute to the country's remarkable ecological diversity. The other important point is resource diversity. So different kind of areas are rich into the different kind of resources. For example, if we consider Chota Nagpur Plateau, it is rich in minerals, while if we consider the Gangetic Plain, it is very fertile for agriculture purposes, and Himalayas are gifted with extensive grassland forest and potential mineral deposit. Also, if we consider the arid and semi-arid area, these are good and excellent source for solar and the wind potential. So we can see the different kind of resource availability is there in India. So this resource availability is linked with the economic prosperity of a nation. So they are contributing for the economic prosperity of the country. Also we know, since we are surrounded by the sea from the three sides, we are having a vast coastline which can be used for the different kind of economic purpose. So that is also contributing in India's prosperity. Also we can harness the sources of the sea and oceans like fish and related activities, also the petrochemical related things. So that is why India is having a resource diversity. And the other important point is cultural and linguistic diversity also. As we have already discussed, the different kind of people, ethnic people are staying here, and because of that we have different cultural tradition, languages and customs. So different areas are having distinct identity and contributing for the country's cultural diversities. Now, as we have already discussed some of the positive points, now let us try to discuss some of the negative because of the large latitudinal and longitudinal extent. As we know, the different kind of area are having different kind of resource availability and different kind of biodiversity, but there are some socio-economic disparities are coming out of it. Because for example, the areas which are having lesser amount of resources, or those areas which are not having the economic prosperity, they face a challenges with respect to the development. So that is also something which we have to keep in mind with respect to the implication of large latitudinal and longitudinal extent. Also, at times climatic variability leads to issues such as a flood, drought and cyclone, and it necessitates the adopted strategy with respect to the infrastructure development. For example, the Himalayan ecosystem or eastern or western Ghat ecosystem, these are ecologically sensitive area. So we need to be prepared for the floods or the cyclonic effects for the Eastern Ghat, we have seen these are prone for the cyclones. Also, we have seen the frequent flash flood into the Himalayan region. So because of this variability of the climate, some areas become more prone for the climate change or the related things, and thus we need to stay focused, and already we have to prepare that kind of infrastructure which is capable enough to stop these kind of issue or to have a mitigating effect related to it. So these are some of the implications. Now come to the conclusion. Here in conclusion, we can discuss about the significance of India's status as a subcontinent. So for example, we know the subcontinent characteristics is providing geographically distinct feature. Also, we have climatic and other important aspects such as way of life, and it is influencing different aspect of the country such as cultural diversity and economic development. And it is very important to understand and manage the implication of this subcontinental identity, because it is crucial to addressing the country's challenges and to take the advantage of the strength for sustainable development and growth. So we already have seen there are few advantages we are having because of the status as a subcontinent. We have to take the advantage of it. We have to try to take the different kind of advantage in the field of sustainable growth and development. But along with it, the few challenges which we have already discussed, there are because of the status as a subcontinent, because of the large latitudinal and longitudinal extent, we have to be prepared for facing the challenges related to it. That is the conclusion. Now let us go through the model answer. Here in the model answer, in introduction we have defined what subcontinent is, and then we have classified the features of India as a subcontinent. For example, the geographical separation, the size and physiological diversity, cultural and linguistic diversity, and then we have written down the historical significance also, and then we have written down the implication such as climatic diversity, length, time zone, biodiversity, cultural and linguistic diversity, and then we have provided a conclusion at the end. Now let us discuss the second question, which is saying, explain the phenomena of El Nino Southern Oscillation and highlight its impact on Indian monsoon and agriculture. Let's try to understand the demand of the question. Here we have to deal with the two part of the body. The first part of the question is asking about the phenomena of El Nino Southern Oscillation. So we have to explain it, what ENSO it. And in the second part of the body, we have to deal with the impact of the El Nino Southern Oscillation on Indian monsoon and agriculture. So these are the two demands of the question we have to deal with. So let's start with the question. Here in introduction, we are going to define the ENSO in brief. What El Nino Southern Oscillation is, we are going to define here. So first of all, try to understand why it is known as the El Nino Southern Oscillation. Okay, so we are going to deal with this phenomena. But first of all, try to understand why we call it as a oscillation. So we know an oscillation is something which means the movement from one direction to another and then again in the same direction. Okay, so this is the recurring phenomena happens into the oscillation. Okay. Similarly, here in El Nino Southern Oscillation, why Southern Oscillation? Because it happens into the Southern Pacific Ocean. That is why the name Southern Oscillation is given. Now here in this particular phenomena, there is a continuous oscillation between the different points. Okay, and what these points are? Suppose this is the oscillation we are talking about. Here the oscillation is between different 3 points, which is El Nino, La Nina and the neutral phase. So here we can see, if you consider the Southern Pacific Ocean, there is a recurring phenomena which is having a kind of oscillation of El Nino, neutral phase, La Nina, or La Nina, neutral phase, El Nino continuously. So this can be seen as a oscillation phenomena into the Southern Oscillation. That is why it is known as a El Nino Southern Oscillation. So we already have seen this particular phenomena is a combination of El Nino, La Nino and the neutral state into the Southern Pacific. That is why it is known as the ENSO. Okay. Now try to understand what ENSO is and why it is causing a temperature difference into the Southern Oscillation. So ENSO is a recurring oceano-atmospheric condition in the Southern Equatorial Pacific due to the change in the sea surface temperature. So we can see this is a recurring cycle. So this particular cycle of changing takes around 5 to 7 years. Okay, so this is a recurring phenomena happening due to the oceanic and atmospheric changes, and that is why it is causing alternating warming and cooling pattern, also known the ENSO cycle, and has a direct impact on the rainfall distribution in the tropics, and also have a significant impact on the weather across the Indian subcontinent and other part of the world. So this recurring cycle is having continuous changing of the temperature into the southern Pacific Ocean, and this is a oceano-atmospheric phenomena. We are going to see why it is called as a oceano-atmospheric phenomena, how it is impacting ocean and atmosphere, and how the temperature is going to see change we are going to see. But in introduction we are just going to define ENSO. This is a recurring phenomena, and we are going to explain why it is known as oscillation, because there is a continuous change between these three stages of the conditions. So this is the introduction which we have discussed. Now we will try to understand the phenomena of El Nino Southern Oscillation. Okay, so if we consider this particular diagram, we can see here the South America is there, and here Australia and the surrounding area is there. We can see it clearly in the diagram. Now let us try to understand how this ENSO is happening. What are the different phases we are having of ENSO? Okay, so if we consider the flow of the trade wind, we know in the equator region it flow from east to west, and because of that the equatorial water and surrounding will be flowing in this direction. So if we consider the water here, it is going from here to here in this direction, westward, and because of that, what is happening, the warm water is getting accumulated here because the trade wind, influence of the trade wind. So this particular water, because we know at equator we are having the presence of the warm water, so because of the trade wind which is flowing in this direction, water is getting accumulated here nearby area. And as we know, because of the warm water, the air surrounded here will also get warm up, so it will become a low pressure area, and the water is getting accumulated here. So the warm air will, we know, moisture ridden warm layer will get upward, and thus here the cloud formation will be there, and the upward area will be having the high pressure area. Now as we know, because water is flowing from here to here, thus this particular area will be having the lesser water availability, thus the upwelling will be there, and here the cold current, we know in upwelling we have the cold current. So here the cold water will be there which is coming from the deep ocean, and thus this particular area, because of the presence of the cold water, will be having the high pressure. Now let us try to understand, because the presence of the high pressure, the upper air will try to sink in, which is creating the low pressure zone here. So and up in here we have seen the high pressure is already there, so the air will move from high pressure to low pressure area. So if we can see here, a different kind of cell formation is here, where the air is flowing from high pressure to low pressure. Here we can see, then here also the air is flowing from this and this and this. So we can see a kind of circulation or cell kind of circulation is going on here. This is known as the Walker cell, and this is nothing but the neutral phase of the ENSO. So now let us try to understand what are the implications we are having because of this ENSO. Because of this ENSO, as we know, cloud formation was here, which will cause the decent and fair amount of rainfall in Australia and the India and the surrounding. And here, since we have seen the cold current is coming upward here in Peru, so it is good for the fish and other related activities. So we can see a Walker cell or the neutral phase of ENSO, where we can see the high temperature nearby the area because of the cold water accumulation into the Australia and surrounding, causing the formation of the clouds here, and which is causing a decent amount of rainfall in Australia and the nearby area in India also. So now let us try to understand what is the La Nina. Now if this trade wind which were flowing will become strong, so what will happen? The strong trade wind will accumulate more water here. More water will get accumulated here in this area. Thus the intensified Walker cell would be there, and this intensified cell will cause more rainfall, into the India and the surrounding area. So we can see that La Nina is nothing but the intensification of the Walker cell, and it is causing more rain into the India and the surrounding area. And why it is happening? Because of the strong trade wind. It is happening because of the strong trade wind which is flowing from east to west. So more water is getting accumulated here in this area, more warm water, and here more cold current is there. Now we have already understood the Walker cell, which is a neutral phase, and also the La Nina. Now let us try to understand the El Nino, what El Nino is. Okay, now we can see that because of the strong trade wind, or under the influence of the trade wind, the water was getting accumulated in this particular area. But what happened if the let us try to understand what happened if the trade wind become weak. Okay, now because of the weakening of the trade wind, what will happen? The warm water which was getting accumulated here earlier will start receding. Okay, now what is happening? This warm water which was getting accumulated here, it will start receding in this direction. Okay, from west to east. So what will happen? Because this particular warm water which was earlier getting accumulated here will come back to the eastern part of the eastern part of the Pacific Ocean near the Parian coast. So now what will happen? Let us try to understand it from the separate diagram. Now, as we already have seen, the weakening of the trade wind is there. Because of that, the water which was getting accumulated, warm water which was getting accumulated nearby, it start receding. Thus, the warm water now will get accumulated here into the east part of the Pacific. Thus, this particular area will be now having the low pressure, because air surrounded by it will also become warm and it will create the low pressure area, and comparative to it, here we will be having the high pressure area. As we already know, because of this high pressure area, air will try to sink in. So this will be having the low pressure in the upper atmosphere. And now because of this, here we have low pressure. So we know already moisture ridden air is there. It will go upward and cloud formation will be here, and we'll be having the high pressure area. So we can continuously see a different kind of cell has been formed here. We can continuously watch a different kind of cell where the circulation is happening in this direction. So what is happening here in this direction and here in this direction? High pressure to low pressure. Now what are the implication of, and this is nothing but the El Nino. This is nothing but El Nino. Now what we can see here, due to El Nino, the cloud formation is happening here. And because of this particular area will receive the more rainfall, but there will be less rainfall or the drought-like condition into the Australia region and the Asia and India. So what implication we are having because of the El Nino? El Nino is lessening the rainfall availability in India and surrounding. In Australia, drought-like condition we are happening, and here in this area the flood-like condition or the more rainfall we can see here in the Parian and the nearby area. So this is the El Nino, La Nina, and the neutral phase, which is Walker cell, we have already discussed. Now let us come to the body. Here in the body we can see that there are three different phases of the El Nino. Southern oscillation we can see, the neutral cell, La Nina, and El Nino. For example, the Walker circulation is caused by the pressure gradient force, which is causing high pressure system over the eastern Pacific and the low pressure system over the Indonesia and nearby. As we have already discussed, La Nina is nothing but the positive extreme of the Walker cell, and because of that, more warm water will get pushed toward the Asia and the regions. And El Nino is nothing where we can see during El Nino, surface temperature in the equatorial Pacific rises, which weaken the trade wind, and east-west wind will get lesser intensified, less availability or less weakening of the trade wind, which we can say, and it brings more water from the West Pacific toward the America. Thus the low system will be created there, and thus the lesser availability of the moisture ridden air into the Asia and surrounding, and it is impacting the Indian monsoon negatively. Now let us try to deal with the second part of the body, impact of ENSO on the monsoon and agriculture in India. So what impact we are having, as we already have discussed, ENSO has a profound impact of summer monsoon rainfall across the India, as the drought-like condition happens due to the El Nino, and during the La Nina events, above then average rainfall would be there into the Indian subcontinent, and thus the agriculture productivity, as we know already, monsoon is linked with the agriculture productivity. So direct impact on Indian agriculture sector, for example, the crops such as rice, sugarcane will get impacted during the La Nina event. It may also impact the Kharif crops. For example, the harvesting which happens during the September and on the early October will get impacted due to the La Nina, and the El Nino is also impacting the crops which is getting harvested into the different seasons. And also we can see the different kind of impact on the temperature extreme. For example, we can see the heat waves presence into the El Nino years, and also water resource will get depleted. Pest outbreak can also be seen, and also livelihood and food security, since it is directly linked with the agriculture, will also get impacted. Now come to the conclusion. Here we are going to talk about the importance of the ENSO on the temperature and precipitation across the globe. So as we already have discussed, this is one of the most important climatic phenomena on Earth due to its ability to change the global atmospheric circulation. As we have already seen, it is happening in the southern Pacific, but it's impacting the eastern Pacific, the central Pacific and western Pacific also. So it is impacting a huge area of the globe, and that is why it influences temperature and precipitation across the globe. And because of ENSO, we often predict the arrival of the many seasons in advance, and it has a strong impact on the weather and climate condition across the world. That is why it is important to understand the pattern of the ENSO, and due to the different kind of region, this pattern is also getting changed. So we have to be fully prepared in this direction so that we can deal with the extreme weather events in upcoming future. Now come to the model answer. In model answer, in introduction, we have given or defined the ENSO, what it is, why it is known as a southern oscillation. Then we have deal with the different phases of ENSO, such as El Nino, La Nino and neutral cell, which is Walker cell. And then we have talked about the impact of ENSO on monsoon and agriculture. And then we have written down the conclusion here. Now let us discuss the third question, which is saying, what do you understand by the term urban heat island? Explain its causes and suggest measures to mitigate its impact on Indian cities. Let's try to understand the demand of the question. Here, in the first part of the question, they are asking about the term urban heat island. So we have to explain the term, what it is, what we understand by this particular term. And then we have to explain what are the causes we are having due to which urban heat island we can see, and what mitigating measures we can take with respect to urban heat island. So these are the different demand of the question we'll be dealing with. Now come to the introduction. So in introduction, we are going to define the term urban heat island. As we already have discussed, urban heat island is an effect which refers to a phenomena where urban or metropolitan area experience high temperature as compared to the surrounding rural area, and this temperature difference is primarily due to the human activity and the building environment around the urban area. So what it is nothing but, if we see that the temperature into the urban area or metropolitan area, which is usually higher than the rural area, is due to the anthropogenic reason or the construction due to the human activities. So if we consider this particular diagram, we can see because of the building narrow and the compact building structure, the heat get trapped into the metropolitan area, while if we consider the rural area, the construction is of different type. Also the presence of the water bodies or the presence of the forest or the green areas, vegetation covers, reduces the temperature in that area. Also the concrete structure into the urban area, for example the roads which are having the dark color and the material which they have used have the tendency to trap the heat into the urban area, which is not present into the rural area. Thus we can see significant high temperature into the urban area, and which is known as the urban heat island. Now come to the body. Here into the first, we are going to talk about the causes of urban heat island. So as we have already discussed, this is a phenomena which is present into the urban area due to the urbanization or compact and a very dense kind of habitation. So the replacement of the natural landscape with the surface such as asphalt and concrete reduces the amount of vegetation in open land which can absorb the heat and release heat through the evaporation, resulting into the higher temperature. For example, if we see the street of the cities, urban cities, we can find significant high temperature in those areas. Also, the building density, compact structure limit wind flow and heat dissipation, thus the phenomena of urban heat island present into the cities. And also the lack of vegetation, as we know, the water bodies and presence of the vegetation into the surrounding area is having a cooling effect. Thus the areas which are having green vegetation is having less temperature, but in the due to the urbanization, rapid urbanization, the vegetation or greenery is reducing. That is why the area which are having less vegetation significantly have a high temperature. Also the waste heat, for example, if we see the buildings, transport and the industry, they release a lot of amount of heat, and due to that heat get trapped into that area, and that is why the warm surrounding area we can see into the urban cities. And also air pollution. So some of the particles are having this tendency to trap the heat or to absorb the heat. Thus the air pollution due to some particle is also having the urban heat island impact. Now let us discuss what mitigation measures we can take in this particular direction. We can have green roof into the buildings. For example, if we are having green top like plantation or green vegetation there, they can reduce the heat absorption and they have a positive or the cooling effect into the surrounding. We can also adopt the urban forestry. So if we consider the Telangana, they have adopted the Miyawaki system, which is significantly reducing the heat and the urban island effect into there. So we can provide these kind of green space, urban forestry kind of measure, and we can plant more trees so that they can have a cool environment into the area. And also we can take the reflective materials. What are the reflective materials? They can reflect sunlight on the roads or the rooftop, and they can reduce the temperature into the areas. And also we can improve the public transport, because a large amount of heat is coming from the transportation sector. So we can go for the public transport system. We can adopt the electric vehicle kind of things, which is having lesser emission and mitigating waste heat and the pollution into the area, thus reducing the impact of the urban heat island. And also we can adopt the energy efficient building, which are having availability of the light, natural light, and they are emitting less energy through the different measures. So better insulated material and energy efficient system could lower the amount of the waste heat produced through the buildings. Now come to the conclusion. Here in the conclusion, we can write down the importance of adopting measure to mitigate the urban heat island effect for sustainable urban development. So as we can know, the development is important, but sustainable development is the future. That is why we have to adopt that kind of measure, that kind of infrastructure creation should be there, which is in line along with the sustainable development goal. So we know this is a serious problem that can have a number of negative impact and consequences, and thereby we have a need to take the measures that can mitigate the impact of the urban heat islands. For example, we can take the green infrastructure creation, green building, and also that kind of creation which is having less impact on the environment, thus reducing the temperature in the surround by area. So we can help to make our cities more livable and sustainable. At the same time, we have to adopt the sustainable development methods. So that is the conclusion. Now come to the model answer. In the model answer, we have defined urban heat island in our introduction, and then we have given the causes. For example, concrete and asphalt structure, the building density, lack of vegetation, air pollution, and then we have written down the mitigating efforts such as green roof, urban forestry, reflective material, etc. And then we have written down the importance why urban heat island phenomena need to stop by taking the positive mitigating steps. So that was the discussion for today. Thank you very much. Have a great day.